Let's jump right into this explainer. Today, we're tearing into a highly specific, high-stakes legal guide on navigating traffic stops. Now, since you guys already follow this stuff, we're skipping the basics and hyper-focusing on the two absolute most stressful scenarios detailed at the very end of the manual: nighttime encounters and stops that actually escalate into formal arrests. We're not just going over the what to do here, we're breaking down the exact chain of thought and the psychological reasoning behind why these tactics keep you safe. Because, really, understanding the underlying logic of law enforcement procedures, that is what completely flips the script in these tense moments.
So, put yourself in the driver's seat for a second. You're on an empty road, it's pitch black. Suddenly, flashing lights hit your rearview mirror at midnight. Or, picture this, what starts as a totally routine conversation suddenly ends with an officer telling you to step out of the car, and you hear the sharp click of handcuffs. Are you prepared for that? Do you know the exact words to say? And honestly, more importantly, the exact physical actions to take to protect your safety and your constitutional rights? These are the two extreme high-stress scenarios the source material zeroes in on. Getting the core logic behind them right can literally change the entire outcome of your encounter.
All right, let's tackle the first one. The nighttime traffic stop.
The source specifically carves out the nighttime stop, often called Scenario 6 in the manual, as its own unique beast. Why? Because darkness completely changes the dynamic. The baseline rules of pulling over obviously still apply, but at night you've got to bring a whole different level of proactive communication to the table. The guide lays out 4 extremely specific physical steps you need to execute the exact second those lights go on, all engineered to project total cooperative intent. First, pull over to a lit area if you can, like a gas station or a bright intersection. Second, and this is an absolute must, immediately flip on your interior dome lights. Third, your hands go straight to the 10 and 2 position, right on top of the steering wheel. And fourth, stay absolutely still until the officer walks up to your window. You're basically setting a stage that screams, "Hey, I'm not a threat, and I've got nothing to hide." By flooding the cabin with light and freezing your hands where they are clearly visible, you're removing the most terrifying variable for that approaching officer, the unknown.
Now, that physical cooperation, it has to be instantly paired with verbal strategy. The source explicitly tells you to narrate your every movement out loud before you even twitch a muscle. So say your license is in your wallet. You do not just reach for it, no way. You tell them your exact plan. You say, "My license is in my wallet. I'm going to reach into my back pocket slowly. My interior light is on so you can see clearly." It might feel a bit like overkill, right? But here's why you go to that length. You are actively stripping away all surprise from the situation. In a high-stress, low-visibility environment, a sudden or unexpected movement is the #1 trigger for a panicked reaction. By narrating your actions, you become 100% predictable, which gives the officer a much-needed sense of control and safety.
Which brings us to the underlying why. The psychology of night stops.
To really get why those previous steps are so non-negotiable, we have to look at the psychological background provided in the text. Why this exact sequence of lighting up the car and freezing your hands? Well, it all comes down to the operational reality of law enforcement in the dark, which the source calls elevated alertness. Think about it. Officers approach nighttime stops with a massively heightened perception of personal risk, simply because they can't clearly see their surroundings or who's inside the car. Reduced visibility equals uncertainty, and uncertainty sends tension through the roof. If an officer is walking up to a pitch-black car on an isolated road, their threat perception is already spiking before they're even close to your bumper. By turning on that dome light and locking your hands on the wheel, you're proactively de-escalating their threat radar before they even say a single word.
And this brilliantly hits the nail on the head for the whole philosophy of the text. As the manual spells out, these are not just courtesies, they are strategic safety behaviors. You really have to stop thinking of this as just being polite to a cop. It's not. It's about executing a tactical checklist to protect your own physical safety in a highly volatile situation. Literally anything you can do to lower an officer's perception of a threat directly drops the chances of a routine stop turning into a dangerous one. You're actively managing the environment so everyone gets to walk away safely.
But what if it doesn't stay routine? Let's move to when stops become arrests.
Let's transition to the highest stakes scenario in the entire guide. Scenario 5, being placed under arrest. You've been asked to step out and you are being taken into custody. Boom! The stakes instantly shift from just physical safety to intense legal jeopardy. And the source draws a super bright hard line between two crucial concepts here: physical compliance versus legal non-concession. If you're being arrested, you absolutely must comply physically with all lawful commands. You yield to the handcuffs, you do not resist, you move slowly. Period.
Physical resistance, as the text rightly points out, is just going to hit you with extra charges like obstruction or resisting arrest, which catastrophically compounds your problem. Now, human nature, all that extreme adrenaline, it makes us want to tense up or pull away. You have to fight that instinct. Yield your body completely to the process, but, and this is a massive but, physical compliance does not equal legal concession. You yield your body, for sure, but you absolutely do not yield your constitutional rights.
The exact second you are taken into custody, the whole legal landscape shifts, and your constitutional shield powers up. Your Miranda rights activate, and the incredibly strict rules of custodial interrogation lock into place. We're talking about your Fifth Amendment right against self-incrimination, your right to remain silent, and your Sixth Amendment right to counsel. You have the fundamental right to an attorney, completely free if you can't afford one, and the right to know exactly what you're being charged with. The gravity of this moment, it really can't be overstated. You're not just a motorist anymore. You are a subject in the criminal justice system. But here is the critical catch, the thing you have to remember. These rights don't just magically protect you because they exist. You have to actually activate them.
Which leads us perfectly into your most powerful legal tool.
So how exactly do you activate that shield? Look, under the extreme stress and adrenaline of an arrest, human nature screams at us to explain ourselves. We desperately want to talk our way out of it, right? To rationalize what happened or fix what feels like a massive misunderstanding. But the source could not be clearer on this. Talking to the police under pressure almost never helps you. In fact, it frequently leads to inadvertent admissions that will absolutely be used against you later. Your battle is in the courtroom, guys, not on the shoulder of the highway. So you have to use your most powerful legal tool, which is this exact phrase. I wish to remain silent. I want to speak with an attorney. You need to drill that phrase into your brain. The source explicitly warns that being wishy-washy fails in court. Saying stuff like, well, maybe I should get a lawyer, or I probably shouldn't say anything, that does not legally count as invoking your rights. If you're ambiguous, the officers are legally allowed to just keep right on questioning you. You must be direct, explicit, and unambiguous. Once you say it, you shut the conversation down completely.
And once you invoke that right, what happens next is just as crucial. The source exposes the stark reality of the patrol car ride to the station. Officers might try what are known as transport interrogation tactics. Instead of shining a bright light in your face, they might suddenly act like your best friend. They might show sympathy or just casually drop something like, "Man, what a crazy night. Where were you guys even headed anyway?" Or, "Listen, I know you're stressed out, but between you and me, what actually went down back there?" Do not fall for it for a single second. The manual is totally explicit here. These casual conversations are legitimate, highly trained interrogation tactics meticulously designed to get you on the record when your guard is down. Your move? Do not engage. You simply repeat your exact invocation and you maintain absolute silence.
So we've walked through the tactical brilliance of narrating your physical movements in the dark to de-escalate a threat, and the absolute non-negotiable necessity of verbal discipline during a formal arrest. The core logic from the source material is honestly undeniable. During a traffic stop, your behavior directly dictates your physical safety, but your silence is what preserves your future freedom. It takes an unbelievable amount of self-control to override our natural human instincts in high-stress situations like these, but mastering these responses is essential. So I want to leave you with this final thought to chew on. If those lights flash at midnight, or you hear the sharp click of handcuffs, silence is your most powerful tool. Will you have the discipline to use it? Thanks for hanging out with me for this explainer, and keep learning.